Hi guys! Welcome to the second quarter, and this is our first lecture for the second quarter, and I hope that you will enjoy and that you will learn so many things in this quarter because starting this module officially, we're going to learn about the Spanish colonization of our country. Okay, so without further ado, we are going to begin. Okay, so here we are. So the Spanish colonization of the Philippines. Before we officially start with the Spanish colonization, I want you to get to know Spain as a country first. Okay, so what did Spain go through? Why did they colonize the Philippines? So these are questions that I want you to understand so that you will be able to get a bigger picture of history more, because if you just kind of learn history in a very boxy way, like for example, okay, this date, that date, this person, that person, it won't be very interesting. So I want you to learn history in a more holistic way. So we will start with the history, a very short history of Spain. So in 500 AD, in 500 AD, Spain was colonized by this barbaric group. Okay, this barbaric group are called the Visigoths. Okay, these Visigoths, when I say barbaric, I mean they had no education. Whatever education they had was not the usual education that people had. So they had no art, they had no literature, kaayo. They just wanted to pillage and destroy and then plant and survive. Okay, so when it was 500 AD, which was around the time that the ancient civilization of Rome collapsed, the Visigoths were the ones that stayed in Spain. Okay, so these are the Visigoths. Look at that. So this would be the kingdom of the Visigoths here, because this is what Spain is already. Actually, Spain is only up to here now, but before it extended a little bit farther. Okay, so this is the Visigoth rule. So that is 500 AD. When 711 AD came, Spain was taken over by Muslims. So for 211 years, the Visigoths were the rulers of Spain. But then something changed. There was this new empire that formed in Asia, and it was called the Islamic Empire. And this Islamic Empire overran the Western world. Okay, so actually a lot of the eastern portion also, but in the western portion they really overran them. In Africa, in Africa, in many other places, in Egypt, and they reached Spain. So the Moors reached Spain during this time. Okay, so 511 AD, and of course they changed the religion, whatever, because the religion that the Visigoths were actually converted to Roman Catholicism during this point, and then after that, they became Muslims. So a large part of Spain became Muslims, and the Muslims stayed actually for a very long time. There were some attempts of reclaiming the land, and this was called the Reconquista. So in 700, if the Moors reached Spain in 711 AD, in 718 AD, the Spaniards did not like the presence of the Muslims. So they tried to take them out. Okay, so they tried to take them out, and this event of taking out the Muslims was called the Reconquista, and it started in 718 AD, but it was largely unsuccessful because the Islamic Empire was a very large and a very well organized empire, and the Spaniards who were trying to kick them out were not as organized. So it was very hard to kind of do that. So it was largely unsuccessful for many years. But there was one man, look at 718 AD, in 1094 AD, this man called El Cid was actually one of the most successful kind of Reconquista people. Okay, his name is Rodrigo Diaz de Vivar, and he conquered the city of Valencia. Okay, this city of Valencia was conquered by El Cid, and it was freed from the Muslims. So this was kind of like the first defeat of the Muslims. And the Spaniards, when they saw that, oh, so they can easily be defeated, they were inspired. They were inspired to do that. So the Reconquista continued and continued because they were inspired by El Cid. That is why El Cid now is considered a hero in Spain. And there are so many monuments of El Cid in Spain, particularly in Valencia. Okay. Are you still with me? You're still with me? Okay, good. Okay, now. And then, after the victory of El Cid, it inspired people knowing, okay, we shall continue, we shall prevail. And so the Reconquista continued. And the next great success of the Reconquista, remember, the Reconquista was the attempt to drive the Muslims out of Spain. The next successful Reconquista was Aragon. Okay, the expulsion of the Muslims in Aragon in 1137 AD. So finally so now we have Valencia, now we have Aragon, and in Aragon, something great happened, because in Aragon, when they expelled the Muslims, they formed a kingdom. They formed the kingdom of Aragon, and the kingdom of Aragon became very successful, and it was Muslim free. So Aragon became this beacon of hope. It became this beacon of hope na murag, we can drive the Muslims out. We can win. We can expel them from our country and take back what is ours. Okay, now let us pause here first. After the victory of Aragon, Portugal was formed. So out of nowhere, Portugal, something probably that the Muslims failed to check, became this what do you call this, kingdom. Also, it was a very large kingdom. Look at Portugal here. So if Aragon is here, Valencia is here. Look, Valencia is here, Aragon is here, and now we have Portugal. And Portugal, out of nowhere, became this kingdom in 1139 BC, and it became a very again, Muslim-free. And they became very, very progressive. While when Portugal became progressive, they established stuff. Okay, now, don't worry, I will explain that. In 1418, Prince Henry the Navigator became very interested in exploration. Okay, now, because during this time, people did not know that the world was round. Okay, so let me go back to the map. Before, they thought that if you ever ventured here, west of the Atlantic Ocean, you would fall into an abyss. There was this belief that if you continued sailing and sailing and sailing, you would fall into an abyss. So nobody sailed to the west ever. Nobody even sailed to the south because they were scared again that there would be an abyss. But Henry the Navigator did not believe such a thing. He said, you know what? I really do not think that is true. So here's Henry the Navigator here. That is his picture. So he said, I don't believe that such a thing is possible. I think that there might be more to this world than just us. It can't just be us. You know why he was able to think this? Because this is Sagres Point. If you can see, my caption here is School of Navigation in Sagres, Portugal. Now, if you go to Sagres Point, even until now, and if it's a very, very clear day, and if you look beyond the horizon, because Sagres Point, again, I'll go back to the map, so this will be clear to you. Sagres Point is somewhere here. Okay, so this would be the Atlantic Ocean, and there is another continent here, America, which people did not know existed. So on a very clear day, if you go to Sagres Point, you can actually see America here. So when Henry the Navigator would maybe, I don't know, have a telescope, and he would be like, la 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 la, whale watching on a clear day, and then he saw and he was like, oh, what is that? and he figured it was land. So he said, we have to go there. We have to go to there. Okay? So he was like, okay, we're going to go there. We're going to try. We're going to find a way to go there. And so he built the School of Navigation. So he did not even ask money from his king father. He used his own money to build this School of Navigation. And in this School of Navigation, they utilized 3 major instruments, which is the compass from the Chinese. Now you might be wondering, how did they trade with the Chinese? They traded with the Chinese already, and that is a whole different story, because during ancient time there was this road called the Silk Road, and it was products from China, and it would be brought all the way to Turkey, and from Turkey it would then go to the places in Europe. And one of the things that they traded in the Silk Road is the compass. And then you all know what a compass is. A compass is always pointing north, and this will be very helpful for navigators, because when you're at sea there are no landmarks. You know what a landmark is? Oh yeah, this is SM. I know that when I reach SM I have to turn right. If you're in the ocean, there are no landmarks. It's just flat water, so you need to find north. Now, another thing was the astrolabe also. This is also kind of like a landmark finding thing for navigators, because it uses astronomy. It uses the stars, it uses the whatever it is, the heavenly bodies, in order to navigate the sea. And in the School of Navigation, they were able to come up with a new ship called the Caravel. Okay? The Caravel is a smaller and a lighter ship that can maneuver quicker, because before their ships were so bulky. Okay, so very, very successful creations of the School of Navigation by Henry the Navigator. You know what? Ironically, Henry the Navigator never navigated himself. He just stayed in the school. So it's very ironic when you call him Henry the Navigator, but he never really went out of Portugal. I find that very interesting and a little sad, but okay. Now, because of the School of Navigation, Portugal was able to explore. See, this is Portugal here. They were able to explore Africa. So here they were able to go to Africa. They were able to see new places there. What happens if I do this? Does this button do? Never mind. Okay, so they were able to explore Africa, and then they were able to establish trade in Africa. They were able to get products from Africa and sell it here. So Portugal actually became very rich, while Spain was still struggling to kick the Muslims out. Okay, so that was kind of like the issue there. Okay, now, so this was happening. No, this was all happening in 1469. There was a marriage. Okay, before, marriages were more than just, oh, I love him, oh, I love her. It was more than that. It was particularly between monarchs. Okay, when a prince would marry a princess, it wasn't a Disney romantic whatever. It had a business plan or a political plan. So when Princess Isabella married Prince Ferdinand, okay, Ferdinand is from Aragon. You remember Aragon? The first ever kingdom established, okay? A non-Muslim kingdom, because Valencia was the first city that was cleansed of Muslims, but they did not establish a kingdom. But they did establish a kingdom in Aragon, and Ferdinand was the prince. There was a princess in Castile, and her name was Isabella. And in Castile, they were fighting the Muslims also. So the parents of these two said, you know what? We should unite our kingdoms and then build a stronger one so we can fight the Muslims once and for all. And they did. They got married, and it was a very powerful union between Castile and Aragon. So that is their coat of arms. Okay. So once they were unionized, Isabella and Ferdinand, they started the Inquisition. Now, what is the Spanish Inquisition? The Spanish Inquisition is when they hunt down non-Catholics, okay? non-Roman Catholics were hunted down and imprisoned. They were hunted down and tortured, or they were killed. Okay, now why did they do this? Because their main reason was they wanted to really get rid of all the Muslims and kick them out and whatever. Okay, so kick them out, and then basta ka na. And then after, so the Spanish Inquisition happened in 1478. Okay, so there was a Spanish Inquisition and the Spanish Inquisition was so effective. This is still Reconquista, ha? Remember, Reconquista is the attempt to drive the Spaniards out. And then after that, finally, in 1492, the last Spanish city that was freed from the Muslims was Granada. That is why it says 1492, Granada falls. So here are Isabella and Ferdinand, and this is the last Muslim king of Spain, and his name was Boabdil. Okay, and Boabdil had to surrender because Granada finally fell. And Boabdil, you know what? When Boabdil had to release Granada and leave Spain once and for all, he failed. He looked back, when they were leaving Spain already, he looked back and he wept because, he was sad that he lost an entire... Can you imagine? I mean, if you lose money, like 100 pesos, it kind of makes you kind of like, where did I put it, man? Why did I lose it? Why was I so tanga? And then I did not, but then can you imagine losing an entire country and then you're the king, Pagyod, and you were not able to do that? So he wept. He was like, oh no, I'm a failure. You know what his mom said? His savage mom. He said, you do well, my son, to cry like a woman for what you couldn't defend like a man. I don't know why I imagine Beyonce saying that. Like, Beyonce was his mom, and he was like, you do well, my son, to cry like a woman for what you couldn't defend like a man. And it's like, Boabdil must have cried some more. I mean, Mom, I need a hug here, Mom. But then the mom did not hug. Okay? So the mom just kind of, bala ka diha. Okay, so now all of Spain belonged to Spain with two very powerful monarchs on the throne, Ferdinand and Isabella. And then they were considered the Roman Catholic monarchs because they got rid of all the Muslims. Okay, so that is it. Now, they're the ones who got interested in exploration. Okay, they were looking at Portugal, man. They were like, why is Portugal so rich? Why? And then they said, oh, your majesties, it's because they have explored Africa and they even reached India. So, yeah, they're rich. They're rich now. And so Isabel and Ferdinand were like, oh, we want to be rich too. I mean, give me some of that money. So they wanted to be rich also. So they were like, okay, so we have to... What did they do? Let's copy what they did. And he said, oh, they were exploring and discovering. And then they were thinking like, okay, do we have explorers and, whatever? So no, they're all Portuguese. So he said, okay, let's recruit Portuguese explorers. Okay, so the first Portuguese recruit was... coffee. Okay, the first Portuguese recruit was Christopher Columbus. And maybe some of you are familiar with Christopher Columbus. What did he discover? I can't hear you. I wish I could. But he discovered America. But it's actually a very funny story because Christopher Columbus, he said, yes, Queen Isabel and King Ferdinand, I will explore the West and cross the Atlantic Ocean, and I will find Asia. Remember, they did not know at all that there was an American continent. It was not called America. There were people there, but they did not know. So Christopher Columbus was like, okay, I'm gonna go. So Christopher Columbus was given money. He had a fleet and he had everything. And then after that, he went. Okay, so larga na larga. And then after that, he reached America. He did not know it was America. He reached land. And that land was Middle America. But when he got there, he thought that he was in Asia. Because, I mean, he only knew Asia. And kaya mag-trade na ba ya? So he's like, I'm in Asia. People, hi people, are you Asian? And then he tried. So there were people living in America. There were Aztecs, there were Mayans, there were Incans, and then there were, American Indians. That's actually why they're called Indians, because Christopher Columbus thought he was in India or China, and then he was like, oh yeah, I'm here. And then he kept saying, is this Asia? Is this China? And then the dwellers of America were like, I don't know. I mean, I don't know. Maybe. I don't know. Christopher Columbus was like, yes, we found Asia. He had a cartographer with him. I don't think I've introduced the word cartographer to you yet, but a cartographer makes maps. Okay. His name was Amerigo Vespucci. Amerigo Vespucci was like, he was looking at the landscape because he's a cartographer, so he knows geography, he knows the landscape and everything. And he was looking around and he was like, sir, I don't think this is Asia. Based on the maps that we already have of Asia, this does not look like it is Asia. And then Christopher Columbus was like, shut up, Amerigo. We discovered a route to Asia. Okay? This is Asia. Amerigo was like, it's not. It's a new world that's so much bigger than finding a route to Asia, because we discovered land that nobody in Europe knows about. But Christopher Columbus failed to see the magnanimity the magnanimity of that statement. And then he was just like, shut up, you Amerigo, because I will not fail the king and queen. I told them I would find a route to Asia, and I did. And then here, I have a letter for the emperor of the Chinese empire. You give this to your emperor. And then the people dwelling in America was like, okay. And then they would just throw it away. But Christopher Columbus was so blinded by his ambition to find a route to Asia that he failed to see that they discovered a new world. So Amerigo was like, bahala ka diha, sir. I'm going to make a map of this new world. And because Amerigo got to make the map of this new world, he named it after himself. He was like, okay, Columbus doesn't want it, so I guess I can have it. So that's why it is called America. Okay, it's North America and South America, and it is named by the cartographer Amerigo Vespucci. Okay, Porbida. Kasayang, what a waste of a discovery. So Christopher Columbus he failed good. He failed to see how big this would have been for him and for his career. So, sayang kayo. Okay, now, so Christopher Columbus was actually fired eventually because he was so stubborn, and he was stripped of his title of admiral. But then at least he's still honored as the one who discovered America, though he refused to admit it. That's why there is still a Columbus Day in America. But Colombia was named after him. But sayang, it would have been named Columbia Land or Colombia. It would have been Colombia, like the entire thing, if he acknowledged and listened to his cartographer. Okay, so we have Amerigo Vespucci, and at the forefront, and then Columbus was just kind of like, ay nako, ambot na lang. And then after that, in 1494. So now. Okay, here. So now, Spain has property here. Portugal has property in Africa and India. They had a fight. Now, Portugal and Spain did not know how to share already. They were like, this is my land. No, this is my land. No, they're like kids. They're like kids who don't know how to share. Mine. And then after that, the Roman Catholic Church decided that it has gone too far. So there was a pope that said, his name was Pope Alexander VI, and he was like, you know what, if you can't share, then we're going to divide the world. Now, let's pause for a minute. This shows how much power the Pope had before. Na he had the authority to divide the world into two. Can you believe that? The Pope cannot do that anymore, and I will explain why in the next slide. But before, the Pope could divide the world. That is how much power he wielded. Okay, his power went beyond the Roman Catholic Church. It even extended to government. Okay, so he said, okay, so in 1494, Pope Alexander VI divided the world into two, and he divided it among Portugal and Spain. So this part would be Portugal, and this part would be Spain, and this part would be Portugal. But little did he know, I guess, that if you turn around here, if Spain would be like, explore, this is around, baya. And then he will still reach here. So is he encroaching on Portugal territory? Or even if the Portuguese were like, explore. Hello. So that was a very confusing thing. No? So this caused actually so many problems, more problems than expected. So anyway, so that's it. So the Treaty of Tordesillas was divided. Now, this is the event that actually broke the power of the Roman Catholic Church. Because in 1517, Martin Luther, who was a priest, began to question the teachings of the Roman Catholic Church. He was kind of like, you know what, there are a lot of things that the Roman Catholic Church are teaching that are just not found in the Bible. And one such teaching that he was particularly angry with was the selling of indulgences. Okay, what is an indulgence? An indulgence is a piece of paper or a blessing that you could buy from the Roman Catholic Church, and it will allow you to indulge in any sin that you want. For example, you want to cheat on your test. And you will say, I know that cheating is a sin. But the Roman Catholic Church was selling indulgences. And they were like, if you buy an indulgence, you can sin and you are forgiven already. So this piece of paper signed by the Pope will allow you to sin without getting the wrath of God. And when Martin Luther heard, because the Roman Catholic Church at this time wanted money to build the Vatican, okay? So there was this, it was a Pope city, it was called the Vatican. They wanted to build it, and I've been to the Vatican, my gosh, it's so rich. It's one of the richest places I have ever seen. Everything is made of marble, you know, they use gold thread in their tapestries. It's just sickening. And knowing that this is the reason why the Vatican is so rich, kind of how many people were deceived in buying the indulgence and said, okay, yes, I have an indulgence, I can now sin, and then God will not get mad at me. I mean, Martin Luther really found that sickening, and he preached against it. And when he started to preach against it, you know, there's a verse in the Bible that says faith comes from hearing the word of God. When they heard the word of God that the indulgence is wrong, you don't have to buy forgiveness, because forgiveness is free. Because the Lord died on the cross to forgive us. When Martin Luther was preaching this, so many people were set free from the bondage of the Roman Catholic Church. They were like, we don't need to pay money in order to be forgiven. So they were so happy. They were just so freed, and they were so amazed and everything. So many people left the Roman Catholic Church. A large part of Europe left the Roman Catholic Church, and some became true Christians, believing only the Word of God, but most also just left the Roman Catholic Church and formed other religions. Okay, so the Reformation really broke the power of the Roman Catholic Church. So the power that Pope Alexander VI once had, that he could divide the world into two, was not given to him anymore. And now the Roman Catholic Church was weak. And now they needed new converts. They were like, okay, what are we going to do? We need new converts. So, enter Magellan. Magellan was actually Portuguese. He was trained in the ways of the Portuguese way of navigation, but the king did not like him very much. Okay, the king did not like Magellan very much. They had beef with the king. So the king was like, I'm not going to support. The Portuguese king was like, no, Magellan, I'm not going to support. So Magellan went to the king and queen of Spain and said, I will I will sail under the flag of Spain. And so that's where Magellan comes in already. We are going to discuss Magellan in greater detail later in the next lecture. But for now, that's when Magellan comes in. Magellan, we are failing in Europe. Our Roman Catholic religion is not as powerful anymore. We need new lands to convert into Roman Catholicism. Can you find new land? And he was like, okay, we are going to find a new route to Asia. We're going to discover new lands. We're going to we're going to trade. That is the 3 G's na: gold, God, and glory. We gold because we need more money. God, because we have to spread the Roman Catholic religion, and glory, we want to be the best country ever. So, explorers like Magellan, Hernan Cortes actually went to South America, and Francisco Pizarro. So they were sent all over the world in order to build colonies. So Magellan reached us, Cortes reached Middle America, Mexico, and Pizarro reached Peru. My dog is barking, yun. It's so annoying. Okay, now, this is the king, actually, that we were named after, Philip II. And this is Miguel Lopez de Legazpi, the Spaniard who successfully colonized the Philippines. Okay, because Magellan did not colonize the Philippines. He just arrived in the Philippines and he saw us and he was like, okay, and then he died. Which is, Magellan's, this is actually the topic for our next lecture, which is Magellan's voyage. So that's it for part 1. See you later for part 2.